So the obvious question is, why did you decide to make this move from graphic novels to the screen?
It was a very specific kind of animation that I really loved, which I call limited animation, and a lot of it comes out of comics, like the very first Astro Boy series by Tezuka. Tezuka was a comic artist, and he wanted to compete with Disney, but the Japanese television companies didn't give him that much money, so he kind of developed a way of communicating space and composition, and he used his skills as a cartoonist to make cinema. And I always thought it was super cool, the kind of, it had its own strange, like, particular beauty that was different than fuller animation and different than CG. Like, there's the Charlie Brown Christmas special as another example of that, where it's translating comics into animation, Speed Racer, it had it felt like independent cinema, where it's like, look at what you can do with so little. Look at how awesome looking at a dot can be, or how emotive just like dots for eyes can be, and little like parenthesis expressions, and getting a lot out of a little, I saw in those. So it wasn't just like making a movie, it was like I like this one zone of animation I really loved and thought I wanted to be a part of.
And how do you and Jane work together? I mean, how do you divide up the work?
Well, everything about this film is really an ensemble process, where there's things going back and forth between both Dash and I and the other artists that we work with. I would say that I'm definitely sort of the microscopic end, where I stay very close to the images. I'm doing detail work, whereas Dash is the master of the macroscopic, seeing the whole picture. On a very minute technical level, I'm doing a lot of the underdrawing, and Dash is doing a lot of the actual inking. I'm doing a lot of the computer technical work.
Yeah, you know, I feel like there's a lot of different ways to make animations, but one thing was like when I saw the Ralph Bakshi cartoons, I saw that he kind of cast artists like actors, and he knew what they did, and he thought, oh, I know Mike Ploog's work from his illustrations, and so I'll have him do the flashback sequence in Wizards, and it'll look different than the other drawings in that movie, but it'll be like part of the language of that movie. And I thought that was super cool, that instead of just trying to hire a bunch of people to draw like you, like we're gonna try to know what all of these artists do and incorporate them into this one movie. So like Jane does all the silhouettes in the movie, and there's a running sequence where the people, it's kind of like a long Scooby-Doo run down a hall, and the silhouettes are Jane, and I did the collage paperwork that's kind of flying past. And so that's an example where it's like two different aesthetics, but the movie is the juxtaposition or the collage-like quality of it.
And I'm trained as an animator, so a lot of the more complicated movements, I'm very good at spinning things in space, and so it's easier for me to hand Dash a drawing, and then we get Dash's wonderful, bold line work, which is what you see on the screen.
And, you know, I've never seen backgrounds like this. I've never seen the whole history of modern abstract painting, you know, just going from one to another without any desire to make a logical space. It's just all about as if abstract painting was all about inner expression.
Well, this was originally, I have a long answer for that, but this was originally a 6-page comic short story and that I did in 2009. And the joke of that story was that when I was a teenager, the main kind of alternative school of comics were auto-bio comics, and every comic was that, you know, Chester Brown, Seth, it was like all these people after Crumb that were doing auto-bio stories. So, and then the other school was like the commercial boys' adventure superhero comics. And so I liked both of them as a kid, and the joke of this comic was to have a character with my name, but it was clearly like his delusional kind of perspective or warped view of being inside of an adventure story. And when I colored that comic, it was colored in a very like abstract way, and it seemed funny, like those existential crisis painters like Mark Rothko or kind of New York school painters. Mm-hmm. There was it felt funny to pair that with teenage angst, and that it was kind of like making fun of it, but also participating in it, like using that, but also it's a funny thing to do. And I thought that was kind of a funny idea. And so when it came to doing it as a movie, I kept all of those things from the comic. Like, I knew it would be strange to see so many things about this movie on the screen, but I thought, just keep everything, just adapting this from comics, and hopefully it'll be interesting in a movie form. And you know, just the other part of whenever I'd watch animated movies, I'd always think, the backgrounds can look like anything. Like what you know, Miyazaki is like super sophisticated in his stories and super complicated, and the backgrounds are always like these Maxfield Parrish paintings with these blue skies and white puffy clouds, and I guess he needs it to juxtapose what's going on with the characters. But a part of me is like, why? I didn't understand why there weren't animations that had backgrounds like that, and it also, like the story and everything, felt kind of like those cartoony painters, like Peter Saul, like Amy Silman, Carol Dunham. Like there was a sensibility in there where it's kind of painterly but very goofy, and then you get the feeling that if Peter Saul ever made a movie, it would be like a really goofy, stupid story, you know. And that Sigmar Polke I really love, and he's like a goofball. There's some like zone there.
And who did you make this movie for?
You.
Jane said me, but that isn't really true. I've wondered a lot about that. Because yeah, you think maybe me, but it was too much work. It was too much of a pain in the butt. And you're drawing all of it as a pain, and then you have to change things. It wasn't just for me. And then you think, and then I think, well, maybe it's for like 15-year-old nerds who are into like drawing and painting. But I didn't like get them and like screen it for them and see where they would laugh or any, like, I didn't care. You know, like there's like parts that are like, I guess it's a joke, but we're just gonna keep moving. I don't, you know, I didn't really screen it and try to make it work like so wholly as entertainment. So then I think the answer is I made it for that that branch of limited animation where it's for that medium that I worked through the pain of it and tried to like do it for that to exist on that tree. Yeah, as someone who likes comics and cartoons and cares a lot about it and thinks about comic history and stuff, I thought I really, really want to participate.
I think we could open it up for some questions.
It was, I mean, the comic short story was was in a Fantagraphics anthology. That was kind of just, you know, it's, you know, there's things that's kind of this kid's perspective, and one of those is like these moving up through the floors of this school, like, and it's like, I think of it as a joke about school, where where theoretically you get better or something, but we know that the juniors are not that seniors aren't smarter than juniors, and it's just this idea, I guess, that schools or society have, that like you move up and there's escalating tension, and then there's success at the end, you know, and that's how a lot of Hollywood movies tell us this, and schools seem structured this way, but it's not true, you know, it's ridiculous. You might have success, but it doesn't help you in any way, or it doesn't seem to solve anything. So the book party at that is just kind of keeping that structure of the whole movie. But I love Fantagraphics. I mean, obviously that's also like part of the semi-auto-bio part of it, is that I've been publishing with Fantagraphics and involved with those books for many years.
Yeah.
I storyboarded the whole thing, and then the storyboards became the guides for the whole movie. So then out of the storyboards, it'd be like foreground layer, pencils by Jane, eye ink, you know, background by someone I know from alternative comics, you know. So I kind of divided up, but based on the storyboards. And you want to try to answer how long?
Well, I was going to piggyback on your answer, which is that there wasn't a strong, there wasn't like a color sheet or anything at the beginning. We had character designs, of course, but it was as the film was coming together in the editing that decisions were made about, okay, we need this scene to look different than that scene, and how do we actually achieve that? And how do we, especially near the end, just keep like trying to ramp it up higher and higher and higher.
But when it was edited, there was all those pieces were already there.
Yes, but it was when I was putting together, we were working like on scenes in chunks, and we did work on it kind of sequentially, kind of starting at the beginning and moving towards the end. And so I would be working, and I would spend a month doing Grimm in the locker room, and then I would hit the climbing sequence, and I'd be like, okay, how can I top that? But clearly make it a continuation, but still different. So that wasn't like a distinct, there wasn't, you know, concept illustrations early in the process. That was more of an experimentation as it was going forward.
I think a key part was that we would use placeholders for things, because everything could be drawn. So there'd be like shitty paintings that I knew someone would redraw, or I would try to draw better. So there was always some kind of sketch version of the movie that was being replaced with better elements.
And most animations, you don't redraw things. The whole point is to do it only once if you can possibly do it. But I mean, the big example is the flower sequence right at the end of Going Guy. I think we went through 6 or 7 iterations of that, like fundamentally different things, to try and find something that felt right. And you know, so the process was very different from studio animation.
And then when did you cast the actors?
When?
Yeah. When in this process did the actors come into it?
We had the majority of the movie drawn. Maybe 70 or 80% of the movie, and it was like, I wrote the script in 2010, and then maybe around 2014, I first...
Because it's so different than the way anyone else would do it.
Well, I knew I wouldn't be able to get any actors. So then I first had to find a producer. So then I knew Kyle Martin and Craig Zobel. I'd met them both at the labs, and Kyle had done Tiny Furniture, and Craig had done Compliance, and they were both movies that were done inexpensively that I thought were amazing. And so I asked them to help me, because I didn't know how to record actors or how to get to people. And in our first like little lunch meeting, they said, "What about Jason Schwartzman?" And I said, "I know Jason, because I had met him many years ago through comics. So I had his email, and many years ago. And so we just kind of worked out from people that we knew, and so everyone who came on knew the sensibility of it.
And did you show the actors what you already had?
They, different people saw different things. They weren't never doing it too, I mean, sometimes we'd have something there, but usually we're just recording, trying to record them. And some people saw a demo, some people saw sections of things. Yeah.
And could you talk a little bit about the music?
Sure. There were a lot of things that I really had no idea what to do with. And I didn't know how to, books don't have any score, and I mean, it was very mysterious. I don't play a musical instrument or anything. And we had a version of the movie, and I just handed it really to this composer I met at the Sundance Labs, Ronnie Sharon. And I didn't make a temp score, and he said, well, what are you thinking? And I said, I don't know. And so he just started sending things. And it was really amazing because he really clarified the tone of the movie, where I think in my mind the score says like, this is carnivalesque and goofy, but there's also danger there underneath it. When it didn't have that score, it was really tonally all over the place. There was like parts that are not funny, then parts that are, it was, and I was looking at this thing, what do I have here? I mean, I was happy not knowing what I had, but the Ronnie definitely, the movie's really like Ronnie and the picture. I mean, Ronnie said 50% of the movie. Yeah.
One of the really brilliant things about working with Dash as a director is that idea of the artists as an ensemble. Like, you think of performers as an ensemble, but he cast Ronnie because Ronnie could bring that together and bring the tone that he wanted, and he trusted his artists to
and Ronnie was super enthusiastic and
wonderful to work with.
He probably really liked it that we didn't do a temp score. And he what would I give him some?
He just got
find some John Williams score and try to put it over. Look, it's really emotional now, Ronnie. I don't know. I had read that I love the movie Akira, that score is a huge part of that movie, and he didn't give that composer any notes either. He just handed it to him, and you can't imagine that movie with a different score. It's very. Probably a lot of composers are annoyed because directors aren't necessarily smart about music at all, but maybe they have
some directors.
Yeah.
Another question out here? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it would. I think that I learned a lot doing this one, and I want to go further in that direction, not try to do something completely different, but use what I learned here and just kind of expand it a bit, or I think there's definitely a lot more in that to do, or more things that are still exciting.
We have time for one more. Anyone out here? Yeah.
In books, especially comic books, I think that it carries over into this movie where there's a dissonance between the text and the pictures. That the kind of main thing of the movie is that all of this stuff is happening, but they're still talking about books or teenage stuff, and that's I think that really comes from comics. Like Dan Clowes is a great example, where there's always kind of a difference between the text and what we're seeing in the pictures, and the pictures is maybe the real world, and the text is like an interior world of his characters. So when you translate it over, it's weird, you know. It's not. But I like it when things from books get put into movies. Like I always think of the Cronenberg movies. Like I love the language in the Cosmopolis movie. Like it doesn't sound real. It doesn't sound like you're watching this movie and why are people talking like this? You know, there's something interesting that happens there. So I hoped that it would be something different for a movie to have. But also I learned that movies are maybe better when you know, the actors can shoot anything through any word. You know, you can say anything and have it mean something else through how the actors say it. And that's like some amazing magical power that they have, and you know, that you can try to utilize that. Yeah, it's pretty weird. I was at this is an anecdote, but it's short. I was at a writing colony, and a bunch of new writers were coming in, and I know my friend had gone out with one of these writers that are coming in, but he didn't tell me which one because he didn't want to make it a weird thing. And so they all come in and they all said hi, and how this one person said hi to my friend, I knew it was just from the word hi. And I was like working on the animation when I was there, and I thought, geez, you can mean anything through any word. Pretty amazing.
Thank you. Pretty amazing film. Thank you, Dash. Thank you, Jane. Thank you all.